Members, it is the appointed time for the meeting and we have a quorum. Let me call the meeting to order. We have two sessions. Today we will have a break of 10 minutes after the first session. The second session will start at 5:10. I'll remind members that if members have direct or indirect pecuniary interests related to our business today, please disclose the nature of the relevant interest according to ROP 83A before you speak. I also draw your attention to ROP 84 with regard to voting when there is direct or indirect pecuniary interest involved. We are on FCR 2017-18-2. Members are invited to approve a commitment of 6 billion Hong Kong dollars for Hong Kong's subscription to shares in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank or AIIB. The panel had a meeting on the proposal on the 16th of March 2017, and the FC had held 4 meetings totaling 6 hours 15 minutes on the 2nd of May and the 5th of May. 29 members have so far spoken on the item and 1 adjournment of debate motion. All of them together have spoken 88 times. And attending for this item, we have Mr. James Lau, Undersecretary for Financial Services on the Treasury, and Ms. Jean Fong. As I said last time, on the 5th of May, I will allow members one last round to speak or to ask a question. Each will have 3 minutes, and then we will proceed to tackling 37A motions. I have received 5 such motions. Ms. Claudia Mo or Wang Ting Kwong, or is Mr. Chen Chichin here? Ms. Claudia Mo, please. The subscription is for $6 billion. It doesn't sound like a big amount because in Hong Kong we are always spending billions and billions of dollars. However, this admission ticket, so to speak, you say the 6 billion will have to be paid in 5 installments, but the first one has to be paid up first, and the remaining 4 are callable shares. And some people say that we don't have to be worried because the UA, Australia, France have all become members of AIIB, and if AIIB should collapse and should ask for callable shares, the opportunity extremely rare. Does it mean there is no cause for concern? Because as you know, there are political considerations behind this. The World Bank is steered by US and Japan, and the same for ADB. This AIIB, and also another one in Shanghai, which is the BRICS Bank. I don't know when Hong Kong will want to become a member of that as well. Those two are different from the World Bank or the ADB because they have not been given any world or global credit rating. The World Bank and ADB have the highest credit ratings. Is it that given time these two will have such a credit rating? I don't know. What I know for now is that, as you know, AIIB is premised on the Belt and Road Initiative and is a trade initiative. And the US has just announced that on Sunday, there will be a 2-day Belt and Road Initiative or conference or summit, and the U.S. will send a high-ranking advisor from the White House leading a delegation to the conference. Some people were worried that China and the U.S. would want to fight for this big brother status in financial services, and there might be a trade war between China and the U.S. anytime soon to try to gain territory for bank services, etc., and that this is a factor for instability. But now there is this political development. My question is, will you say this to Hong Kong people that, look, even if the return is not high, Sorry, your time. It is a politically good investment. Sorry, maybe the Undersecretary can give a short answer. Chairman, we see this as a good opportunity for Hong Kong to take part in a multinational development bank. So it is good for Hong Kong's social and economic development, and it will give play to Hong Kong's one country, two systems system. KK Kwok, please do not count my time yet because I have a point of order to raise. Last time when you said that there would just be 3 more minutes, I was not here. In fact, I have many questions to ask about AIIB. Why is it that you always are so high-handed that you do not allow for more questions? This is a point of order. Okay, have you finished your question? I am on a point of order. Please stop the clock. Okay, I will give you back 3 minutes. I hope you understand. Every time you want to lengthen the discussion, but as the chairman, I have the responsibility to terminate the discussion at a certain point. Last time when I said it, no members actually objected, and we have already spent 7 hours on this topic. I would want to allow you to go on speaking, but according to the procedures, there should come a time when we should stop the discussion. Well, Chairman, it's not how many hours we have spent on it. If the questions are related to AIIB, and we are not inventing these questions, so you should apply the principle that only when there is repetition you can curtail the discussion. But if you do this every time, the jurisdiction of the FC is eroded. This is not just an individual issue relating to this item, it's an overall issue. Dr. Kwok, I won't discuss with you my ruling, but I have considered many things. If you don't mind, I can tell you the factors for consideration after the meeting as to whether there is repetition, whether all the major issues have been asked. We have considered that already. Now, please start. Your 3 minutes will start to count. Chairman, this is outrageous. How can you do such a thing? The AIIB can be seen to be an act of China posing as a world leader. As you know, we have almost 100 billion poor people in China, and of course there are many. Of course, there are rich people in China. There are red capital entrepreneurs, including HNA, but poverty is a real problem on the mainland. They can fork out $100 billion as the major shareholder. But the thing is, we don't want to act in this stupid way. I don't know how poor people can be on the mainland, and I don't think I need to give details as to how the country treats its own people. But in Hong Kong, how are we treating our disadvantaged groups who are waiting for medication, for a bed space, and also SEN students? We are so miserly and stingy towards them. But here we are talking about $6 billion. You are going to approve it without even a wink of the eye, and you are helping them by curtailing questions. This is unfair. This is unjust. It seems Hong Kong's people can be just squandered. 5.4 billion for Disneyland, 6 billion for AIIB. Again, you have the same attitude. Later on, there will be 30 billion for Kai Tak Sports Complex, and then much more for the artificial island. But on the other hand, social services, medical services, and basic services are not rendered. At the same time, the administration is glossing over these major spending items. My question for the Undersecretary is about the 4.8 billion callable shares. How can the SARG ensure that the money we fork out will be done in a transparent manner, that it is not subject to corruption, and that it will not encourage corrupt sovereign powers in the area and pocket the money themselves. How can you make sure that the money will be helping those who are poorest in those areas? Undersecretary. Chairman, the AIIB has its own rules about transparency, disclosure of information, and anti-corruption. At the board of directors, there are 56 members apart from China who will be doing monitoring on the operation of the different projects. They will receive reports. So the board of directors will be the body to watch over corrupt practices. And as you know, many of the projects are done in cooperation with MDBs, including the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, World Bank, and ADB. There are loans with the guarantee of the sovereignty, and they have entered into agreement with the AIIB. Time is up. I want papers and information. I just ask the Undersecretary to supplement papers about transparency and prevention of corruption. I can't see detailed information on the website. I can do that. I'll remind members that the 3 minutes means including the reply. If you only leave a few seconds to the Undersecretary, who then will not be able to give you a detailed answer. Mr. Eddie Zhu, 3 minutes. Oh, he's not here. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Chairman, my question for the Undersecretary is, since Hong Kong became a member of ADB, what role did Hong Kong play within the ADB? What kind of infrastructural projects did we take part in, and how much did we benefit from that? Could I have some detailed figures? I'm talking about ADB. Undersec. Chairman, we don't have details of the projects of ADB because you are talking about the last 2 decades. But in terms of figures, please refer to footnote number 2. And members had already mentioned that there would be about 961.97 million in procurement contracts and consultancies, etc. As to a breakdown of the projects, we'll have to try to ask the ADB, because most of those projects are done by private organizations who tendered for consultancies, etc. The government doesn't have the information. We'll need to discuss with ADB. If we have the information, we can supplement it. Okay, I need that in written form. Second question. The $6 billion, 4.8 billion in the form of callable shares. When AIIB calls for capital, will it ask for the same share from each member? Because it will not be the total of 4.8 billion that will be called from Hong Kong, because each member has some callable shares. Say if I have a $10 billion facility and I have to call shares. Now, which countries, which regions would have to pay in the capital? Would it be done in a fair manner where the shares will be averaged out? Undersec. Chairman, we mentioned that the overarching principle is that over the whole wide world, none development banks have ever called for capital. So normally speaking, even if they need money for a project, they would not call capital. As we understand, this will not happen. But if members are asked to pay in the callable shares, and that is only supposing, it will be done in a proportional way. They will not target any member. Each member will be doing its commitment in a proportional way. how will this 4.8 billion appear in your balance sheet? Is it a provision or is it money spent? Under Sec. Ms. Jie explained last time that in our CIF, there is this record that it is a contingent liability, but there is no provision. We explained last time that when the government makes some guarantee, it will be included in this. Next one, Wong Ting Kwong. Thank you, Chair. I will state from the outset that I support the investment of the SARG in AIIB. The AIIB is an important component of the Belt and Road Initiative. You can see 56 members have joined. They support the item. That goes to show that many people support it. But if you look at the TPP of US, it's nowhere to be seen anymore. At the last meeting, well, today Mr. Eddie Chu is not here. But if I may refer to the minutes of the last meeting, or I watched the videotape, I will quote from him. Mr. Chu said, AIIB is a weapon or a financial weapon. He said in the South Sea, the Beijing has acted with hegemony. It had taken over islands and erected military bases on these islands. Now, how come we have snatched islands from other people? Whose islands are those? Would this behavior be the right kind of behavior for Chinese descendants? Chairman, you said on that day that you absolutely did not agree with Mr. Eddie Chu's description of the Chinese government's behavior in South Sea. But I find it regrettable that some members actually defended such behavior, and they in fact said that Chairman, you as the Chairman, should not comment or respond to members' speeches. But Chairman, since you are chairing the meeting, if you refute issues of principle, that is something you should do. As a chairman, it doesn't mean you cannot speak up. If there is such unacceptable behavior, you should refute it as a principle. Let us not get personal here. Let us just ask questions on AIIB of the government. Mr. Jeremy Tam, 3 minutes. Thank you, Chair. I will use some time to clarify what I said last time. I said something about the interest. I quoted from ADB, not AIIB. I have to be fair to the Bureau. That is my clarification. And also, with regard to words or behavior, the administration should do the same. If you have given us wrong information, you should admit it openly. And I hope we can go in that direction as a council together. May I refer to the paper FCR 2017-18-04. It is about our energy policy. It says we don't have a finalized energy policy yet, but the board of directors would be responsible for approving these energy projects. I'd like to ask why. Only the board of directors can approve the energy projects. And then in your same paper, just the paragraph before it, you said that to join the AIIB, Hong Kong will not have any decision-making powers. Now, if the Hong Kong SARG should see that there are problems with certain projects, that we don't agree with them, then through what channels can we seek to stop the loan? Those 2 questions, please. Under Sec. According to the agreement, the board of directors is responsible for policy formulation and this type of projects and investments.
咁所以呢個係一個正常嘅運作。
So this is normal practice. It mentioned the energy projects. Why did they highlight the energy projects which require the board's decision? We mentioned the energy projects because members asked about energy policies and environmental affairs. That's why we explained that those lie with the board. In fact, all projects lie with the board, not just energy initiatives. If there are objections or comments, how can they be reflected? If there are comments, as we explained last time, if we take part in one of the 12 constituencies, for example, the Chinese constituency, we would relay our views through the Chinese or the China delegation. I understand that this is not a given, right? Do we have to do it through China? If we don't belong to any constituency yet. So right now the constituency is represented by China, correct? Ms. Eddie Chu, 3 minutes. Chairman, can I wait for the next round? Mr. Uchiwai. Thank you. According to the paper, after we joined the AIB, we can maximize the potential of our legal and financial expertise, and we can grasp the opportunities. In order to achieve that, in drawing up investments between countries, in terms of the law, in case of disputes, which set of jurisprudence would be taken? What actual strategies or ideas do you have so that we would be assured that you will proceed with the relevant work under AIB? You said we can use our legal framework and financial expertise, and this certainly applies to Hong Kong. This time we are talking about $1.2 billion, followed by a further $4.8 billion. If calls are made in the future, is there any mechanism in place to refuse calls? And if that happens, what will happen? And can we know what will happen ahead of time? Can the government tell us by the time you come back for money next time? There are certain things that can be applied to Hong Kong. For example, there might be financing projects in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong's legal system would be adopted in the legal paperwork, etc. So that Hong Kong can become the Asian legal center of the AIB. Undersecretary. In terms of finance, Mr. Wu asked about financial expertise as well as financing in our seminars and conferences by the AIB in Hong Kong. Well, we have explained these, but I'd like to explain the strategy or policy issues for our legal framework. How can we ensure that they would choose Hong Kong as a dispute resolution center in case of disputes between countries. This is another issue altogether. This is not about financial talents. This is what we call alternative dispute resolution mechanism. So this is about arbitration or mediation. In the AIIB, there's a manual on sovereign guarantee loans. There is a provision specifying what to do in case of disputes. So any country that takes out loans, when they negotiate with AIIB, they would establish how they would carry out ADR. So our strategy is that when negotiating this clause, we offered our comments so that they would relax the clause in order to give us more opportunities to participate. Mr. Wu is right that a lot of places and countries, including Hong Kong and other places in Asia, are trying to become a center. So that's why we have seen some relaxation in the clauses. The Department of Justice and its officers made multiple visits to Beijing outlining our work. We will have a forum on the Belt and Road later this week. We have published a pamphlet as well as exhibition panels to explain the advantages of Hong Kong. Of course, that's not about the not just about the AIB. Ms. Eddie Chu, 3 minutes. Thank you. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong said something great, and sadly I missed it, but I basically understand what he meant. On the current discussion on AIB, first up, we have only started to touch upon this issue recently for this type of international development bank. Hong Kong is an international city. Have we actually considered whether such organizations would lead to a better world, a fairer world, and whether we can benefit the poor countries? Or are the bigger nations served to lobby with the lobby for support from the smaller countries? And criticisms were made on China's foreign affairs policy, and such criticisms at LegCo are perfectly normal. We are talking about the People's Republic of China. They should be held accountable to the people. But what about people in China now? Do they have a voice? No. Hong Kong still has freedom of speech, so we should embrace this chance to speak out. So does it mean they would refuse to listen to criticisms? Do you think the Chinese leaders cannot even take any criticism? This investment has no cost effectiveness or return. And through the AIB, China is trying to develop the Belt and Road. And this would become a form of expression to Hong Kong, and people like Joshua Wong cannot even visit Thailand. And under the current political climate, he might be barred from visiting even more countries. We have only started the discussions, so it's indeed a shame to end the discussion, so I object to our participation in the AIB. Ms. Alvin Young, 3 minutes. Chairman. we might not agree completely with what Mr. Eddie Chu said, but I agree with one of his points. LegCo should allow freedom of speech on various topics, and the chairman should not decide when to stop members. I want to follow up on what Mr. Wu Chi-wai said on ADR. Can the Undersecretary explain that to us further? He said the relevant authorities, including the DOJ, have tried to recommend Hong Kong to other countries as an ADR. But as I know, when these countries do business with AIIB, well, both are parties to the contracts. And AIIB has a powerful say. The Undersecretary said he requested the AIIB to relax its provisions. Can you be more specific so that we can know more? Did you just tell them that more choices can be given in terms of the contracts, or else? Mr. Lau, Chairman. Originally, the issue would be taken to the Hague Mediation Center. But after negotiation, they relaxed the provisions. This is not just decided by AIIB. The AIIB and the countries taking out loans would agree on the scene of arbitration in case of disputes. The Secretary of Justice tried to lobby with the AIIB rather than the countries, and the Hong Kong government would organize roadshows to recommend our services. I want to follow up on what Mr. Lau said. As of now, apart from using Hague, are there specific examples of the choice of venues in the contracts already signed, and does that list include Hong Kong? We have not seen the actual documents for the projects, and the documents would only provide a list of options rather than chosen options. The papers would not reflect the chosen jurisdictions. Mr. Yu Si-wing, 3 minutes. Thank you. Hong Kong is a small place, and our industries are not very diverse, and we rely mainly on services. We have 4 pillars: tourism, professional services, commerce and industry, and logistics. For these 4 pillar industries, the room for development is getting more and more narrow. If we just rely on our markets, we cannot meet future needs. So I think that participation in the IIB can give us more room for growth. Our participation is not just about money. It's about acquiring the latest information through participation. And we can enjoy priority in taking part in projects with potential. In terms of tourism, under the Belt and Road Initiative, a number of investments or infrastructure projects under the AIB, including transportation, railway, etc. There might be a lot of financing demand for Hong Kong people and tourists and people visiting Hong Kong, so I fully support this funding exercise. As I said, our 4 pillar industries are under challenge. when we become a shareholder in the future, how can we do better to achieve such goal? Chairman, we are not on the board of directors, but we were able to understand about their policy, and through our constituency, we hope to achieve more influence. For our more competitive industries, if projects are available, which we would try to fight for more opportunities for Hong Kong. We will work with the IFFO and they will try to share the information of AIB projects. But we will try to provide such information on this website, which is relatively popular in Hong Kong, so that people can identify business opportunities. Chairman, can the office actually, or the Hong Kong office actually do more? Chairman, we hope that the office can conduct financial management and asset management. We will try to do our best, but a lot of members are trying to become a center or hub. So if we succeed, then our industries would be able to take more part in AIB. Mr. Loy Kwok, 3 minutes. I did not intend to speak because our progress at the Finance Committee has been very slow for new public works. Within this term, we only approved 3 new works amounting to about $1.7 billion. So I did not want to waste time speaking on this AIB proposal, but some members from the non-establishment camp stood against Hong Kong's participation in the AIB, and they even attacked the Belt and Road Initiative, and I felt I have to say something. The Belt and Road Initiative was proposed by the Chinese government, and it was well received by the international community. 60 countries have responded to the Belt and Road, and the majority also take part in the AIB. Along the Belt and Road, there's a population of 4.4 billion, or 63% of the world's population. What about their economic contribution? It's about 2,100 billion US dollar, which is also substantial. So we can see that the Belt and Road economies and countries the GDP per capita is actually lower than the global average. A lot of Belt and Road countries need to be developed and enhanced in order to improve people's livelihoods. So the Belt and Road is not a unilateral scheme by mainland. It's actually a multilateral cooperation, and this is about infrastructure and economy, and it will also benefit exchange of people. In the 21st century, we are at an age of separatism, and the Belt and Road Initiative offers a chance to build harmony for the people. If Hong Kong has a chance to take part in the AIB, it can only be a good thing. To take part in Belt and Road projects, Hong Kong needs this kind of platform. And even if we want to take part, we need to work with the international community. Dr. Yu Chung Yim, 3 minutes. Thank you. first of all, a declaration to make. I once conducted a consultancy study for the ADB.
So members, please don't just look at this 6 billion injection project too positively. You need to have an analysis of the risks and returns so that you can make a rational scientific decision before putting in the money. You can't just think that will be all good. And, since it's supported by large countries, and it should be fine. If that's the case, then there's no need for us to scrutinize it. When I did the research for ADB, back then, that was in 2009, you can see that we had to have a comprehensive study of the infrastructure demand over a 20-year period across Asia, so that we have an idea of how much loans or risks we should be prepared for. I believe the Undersecretary and even the Secretary himself said in their blogs that the 6 billion AIB investments should be made without too much worries about or concern about the returns. You should look at other indirect benefits. If you ask me not to look at its direct risks, then can you give me some scientific data to prove to me the social or other benefits for professionals as a result of our participation? Undersecretary. Because I can't see anything on that in the paper. Chairman. Well, let me talk about the big direction. It's not that we blindly look at it positively or just follow the lead of large nations. When we actually look at the returns and also the risk analysis, participating nations, indeed, they themselves have done similar study. It's just that I think on your second question, when you do the risk analysis, it's not, just about the risk of putting money into the sea, but rather we should consider that it is a project to help underdeveloped economic entities have better chances of, particularly through infrastructure, that the economy and social development can be improved. That's the basic principle of AIB. So you're saying that we're doing a charitable endeavor, therefore we don't need to worry about the benefits and risks or the returns and risks? Sorry, your time's up. Who have questions, please ring the bell. Lao Siu Lai, are you going to ask questions? Okay, next one is Liang Kuo Hong. But you pressed the button last time. Chairman Fong, next 3 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I already spoke, but having heard what the other members have said, I can't help speaking. As an international financial center, it's very important for us to be aligned with the international community. Therefore, it's a rare chance for us to take part in AIB. Some have said the injection of $1.4 billion, what returns will we get? But if you just look at the return from $1.4 billion, that will be too shallow a view. Being involved in AIIB is to foster economic development in the area. For example, we can, through our participation, know about whether the infrastructure companies could be listed or need to raise capital, because we'll be the people to have prior knowledge of these plans. And so this is like intangible benefits. Our accountants, lawyers, and other professions would be actually benefiting from the participation, because we can know firsthand what are the upcoming infrastructure projects. So we don't just look at the actual monetary returns from the $1.4 billion injection. And there's also the point that this is about large nations suppressing small nations for their own political advantages. But AIB would not benefit the ordinary people. Economic development, infrastructure actually is key to development of any economy. Is like the body. The main artery is the most important to bodily health. Otherwise, the heart would not function. So therefore, infrastructure, transportation in nearby economies is very key. If it's boosted, then there must be benefits to economic development in the region, and then the economic benefits will happen. So that means that the general public will benefit as a result of that. So let's not politicize the whole thing. We should look at the overall benefit to the economic development in the region. So I support the participation in AIIB. So, Under Secretary, you don't need to reply. Okay? Oh, sir. Those who want to ask questions, please press the button. You like for such large economic issues, or maybe I've only heard negative news about AIB. We heard that it's because of the surplus productions in China. That's why they came up with this AIB plan. But Zheng Feng just then said that there will be much economic benefits. And it's just him talking. Democratic legislators think that all you said could not be proven. So I'd like to hear from the administration. How can you prove to us that the $6 billion investment will create extra tangible or intangible economic benefits, some in the sense of enhancing Hong Kong's financial status? Can you explain to me, please? Under Secretary, I think several members have spoken several times on China's surplus productions as the main motive for setting up AIB so that China can benefit. But you can look at the number of participants, and there are a lot of developed nations taking part as well. So they have the same access to opportunities. So it's not just one country which has the monopoly here. As for economic benefits, the $6 billion, you know that $6 billion in terms of shares, ownership, they only make up 0.7% of shares in AIB, worth out of an amount of $100 billion. As for the need to study, 2009, the study done in 2009 on the demand for infrastructure across Asia. Back then, the projection was that by 2030, each year there will be a need for $70 trillion in infrastructure needed. And in the last 6-7 years, AIB's projection is that by 2030, each year, there will be a need for $2.7 trillion of infrastructure. So you can see from the figures that I wouldn't have actual data now to show to you, prove to you that what economic benefits can be obtained from the $6 billion or what will be the multiplying effect. If you look at the Asian Development Bank and the AIB's studies on projections for the future, and if you can see the involvement of so many countries in AIIB, which actually is far beyond what Hong Kong is contributing, we can say that even though we would not have a one-for-one return. So in other words, you're saying that cannot be measured, right? I understand this. I want to respect what members have said, but Zheng Feng said that the investment for the weak nations are particularly important. Sorry, your time's up. Next one, Leung Yu-chung, 3 minutes. Chairman, last time I asked, what are the actual benefits for Hong Kong? And you're saying that let's not look at actual benefits, but the peripheral interest and also the impact on economic development. That's far more important, you said. But then members have asked you about specific results. Can you tell me, however, your viewpoint? That is, of all the nations that have participated, if there are no interests for them involved, then there's no reason why they would take part. So, can you elaborate on that a bit more? Why did the other nations join? Is it out of economic or political reason? I think the political reasons weigh more than economic reasons. What expectations do they have? So many nations are participating. If we were to have a share in it, I asked you last time too, if we didn't take part, can we have any share at all? You said not really no, but then there'll be very low chance. Isn't that if we joined, then we had a chance of have a share of the benefits? So you said it's better for us to join than not join. I still can't see how we should decide. Maybe before you said if we didn't participate, we'll have a 1 out of 1,000 chance of gains. Now having joined is 1 out of 100. But proportionally speaking, is a big difference. But in fact, there's no guarantee that we will benefit, because last time you said there's no guarantee that we'll benefit. So why should we do it? There's no specific returns. There's no guarantee of returns. And you kept telling us, well, they all joined so it must be a good thing. But we're not joining a party now. Maybe the other nations joined for political reasons, but do we have to follow them? Are they joining for political or economic reasons? Under Secretary? I think for Hong Kong, taking part in AIB, as mentioned in paragraph 3, is mentioned again, the benefits. As I said, well, there's no guarantee that once we invest that much, we'll get that much returns, or how much returns. But today, I was saying that when we take part, even though we cannot say concretely what can be achieved out of the 6 billion returns, but that doesn't mean that there will be no returns. As mentioned in paragraph 3, Hong Kong itself as a financial center, we have the expertise in financing. You say that it's advantageous to Hong Kong, right? Yes, Hong Kong is in an advantaged position, but that doesn't mean that that's guarantee. But if there are such infrastructure projects coming up, and if Hong Kong companies take part, we will have a chance to share in the profits. But if we don't participate, then there's no guarantee we can benefit. Okay, I've received 1037A, and I will deal with Nathan Law's proposal first. Do we have to claim a division? Okay, the bell will ring for 5 minutes. Nathan Law, if you have to read it out, please go ahead. Based on 37A, Rules of Procedure Finance Committee, I move that since the government has not provided Hong Kong companies and consultants participation in AIB, and there's no proof of the actual returns from participation in AIB to Hong Kong, I urge the administration to collect the relevant data to ensure that there are benefits to Hong Kong in participating in AIB. If other members have other motions, please give them to me ASAP.
各位同事，
Members, we're going to vote on the motion on 10 ad hoc motions under 37A.
好啦，現在開始。
So it's now time to vote. Time's up. Please show the results. 19 in favor, 32 opposed, 0 abstention. I announce that the committee has negatived the motion. So next item. No one proposed to turn 5 minutes into 1 minute. Michael 10? Yes, I move that we should turn the next vote from 5 minutes to 1 minute. And 47, yes, Michael 10 moved that we should vote after the bell has been rung for 1 minute. Okay, any objection? Oh, you want to speak, Lan Ko Hong? Yes, okay. Chairman, I pressed the button and yet I couldn't speak. Firstly, AIB, such a complicated matter. Many people don't know what we are talking about. They kept asking or checking facts with others, and they may have cast the wrong vote. And the undersecretary sitting opposite me really addressed the issue. It's like he hadn't done any homework before coming here. So, AIB. Well, it was expected that the return would be 6 to 10%. That's what we heard before. 2016, the bank was launched. It started offering loans for various projects across Asia. Last time we heard the names of the countries. So the return should be 2% as far as we know. Now it's very low return, in terms of a bank. And he didn't address that. And secondly, and there's also the concern that AIB, which would offer loans to private companies, right? Would you confirm that, Undersecretary?
The target of loans of AIB is mainly private enterprises. Can you confirm that? Sorry, this round is not for you to answer. He can go on speaking. I can tell you directly that this is a bank lending to private enterprises because those countries have no money. They have not enough money. It is now lending to private enterprises which are not ranked, and in the end they are guaranteed by the country. What kind of business is this? There is a big opportunity for default. You are painting a rosy picture like Mr. Christopher Chung. Where are the BRICS countries? The BRICS countries were painted to be such high-growth countries, but the business has gone. It is said that the BRICS countries would surpass England and the US, and that went on for quite a long time. But where has South Africa gone now? Russia's oil has dropped to a new low. There is so much corruption in Brazil. Generation after generation is telling lies. I'm asking you, where are the BRICS countries now? Goldman Sachs has already cancelled that fund. Didn't you trust Goldman Sachs? It's a waste of time. You're all engaging in bluffing. We thought that the BRIC countries would be such huge opportunities. Okay, your time is up, and we should be speaking on whether we would shorten the voting time to 1 minute instead of 5 minutes. And I would remind you that there are 60 odd items. in the list or in the agenda. There's SCL, other infrastructural projects, and also the chief superintendent projects. I know you have more views on Kai-Tak Sports Complex. Let's leave more time for that. And now please speak on whether you support 1 minute or 5 minutes. Wu Chi-wai, 3 minutes. Thank you, Chair. In the process of such discussion, especially this one on AIIB, there are many objective technical issues that we need the administration to clarify. However, unfortunately, we have no more chance of asking questions. I only asked questions once. In the past, whether it's 1 minute, 3 minutes, it's no big deal. It's not a controversy, but Chairman, when you handled these issues, you are cutting short our questioning time. I'm very disappointed with you. I, of course, hope that given what time is left for me, I would ask my question again. I would ask the Undersecretary to now answer that question, and that is, if in the end we pay up 1.2 billion and we are asked to also pay the callable shares, what if we don't? Is there a chance for us not to pay the callable shares? Is it that if we veto the paper, you will not be able also to subscribe the callable shares? And if that's the case, what consequences are we going to face? Can I please know what is going to happen? Whether it is 1 minute, 5 minutes. We just wanted to ask for more answers from the Undersecretary so we understand better the details of the AIIB. Chairman, you may rule that I have digressed, but it's a very helpless situation. I just want to ask the departments to understand through what we say. I know that if we do not subscribe to AIIB shares, then we may not be able to allow others to use our legal framework. And so we lose out. But then we have to know what strategy, what mindset you have in this program so that we enjoy an advantage over other countries. And what advantage is that? And how can we consolidate and realize that advantage? Because you say we'll become a financing center and will become the legal base for the projects. However, I haven't heard any strategies coming from you. You just said, come on, please, let us subscribe the 1.2 billion first before we take this further. But the Undersec should supply a paper to tell us what concrete strategies you have. Dr. K.K. Kwok, 3 minutes. Chairman, I don't think we should truncate the voting time because our discussion is not mature or ripe. Many members were asking questions. Mr. Wu Chi-wai asked a question, and members asked other concrete questions, but they were not given a chance to discuss those. Say, for example, some of the projects already approved would be quite meaningful in Indonesia. A slum will be upgraded. And there are others which will involve other governments. But I'm worried that many of these countries are quite corrupt in world corruption rankings. But of course, none of them is as corrupt as China. And I'm talking about Bangladesh and Indonesia. In Indonesia, there is this program about a dam. There is a dam, but it has already been secured in 1994 to 2003. The second one is 2009 to 2016. Why does it need another amount of investment? I think we should take a closer look. China, the corrupt country, is forking out a lot of the money. And yet, the borrower is also a very corrupt country. This is very worrying. You say there are Western countries, including Germany and others, which have a low corruption index, but they are not the major players. They may not be able to rectify the corrupt situation in the mainland and other third world countries. And yet we are talking about exorbitant sums of money. If we are really helping the people who live in these countries, in fact, I like this slum project. But of course, if you ask whether there will be corruption, as you know, in the Philippines, the money has disappeared. But we need to take a closer look. We need to discuss a mechanism to do this. But the Undersec said he does have some mechanisms. I hope he will provide papers. And if the money goes into AIIB, we very much hope that the SARG should make sure that the money will not be invested in corrupt dealings. Mr. Leung Yu-chung, 3 minutes. Chairman, whether the voting time is 1 minute or 5 minutes, we don't really need to discuss it because it's not very meaningful. In fact, it's a waste of time for us to wait 5 minutes to vote. 1 minute is acceptable, but I object to it nevertheless because you have cut short our discussion at such an early stage. You may say whether the investment amount is large or small depends on the individual, but even 1.2 billion is not a small sum at all. It's quite a big sum, and if you spend it on people's livelihood, you can help many people solve problems. Why do we want to put it into the AIIB? The administration says we have advantages and it can help us to develop, but you are not telling us about the negative side. I, in fact, want to ask this question. You have talked about the positive side, but what about the negative side? But I did not have time. I asked questions last time, and I asked about the positive action, but I'm very unhappy because I cannot turn to the negative side. The thing is, this is not a small amount at all. People are painting a rosy picture, and the administration even said that so many countries have joined. Why do we want to be left out? As I said, why are other people taking part? Is it because of economic or political or other reasons? There are many possibilities, but we have to think why we want to take part. You don't necessarily just have to follow the suit of other people. We should not be seeking to bootlick by becoming a member. And even if you bootlick, what do you get? You don't know what you're going to get. The administration says there is no guarantee. There is no guarantee of return. And even if the capital that we are putting in, we don't know whether it can be preserved. You are cutting short our discussion. You are forcing us to vote. But there are many outstanding issues. You have done this time and again, Mr. Chairman. Why don't we still have discussions? We don't need discussions. We should just put papers to the vote every time we have a meeting. Let us be voting machines. Let us all be rubber stamps. The chairman just has to read out the title of the papers and then we'll just say yes or no. But then this is not how a council should be. We should debate issues. We should monitor and question government officials. Your time is up, Mr. Edward Yu. Chairman, if you want us to talk about the time, members may be in their offices upstairs and they cannot come down within 1 minute. I'd like to turn back to my questions. The Undersec doesn't even know the demand for infrastructure in Asia, and he said he could refer to the consultancy report of ADB, but that was done in 2009. How can you rely on it? If you can trust the ADB, you don't need the AIIB. And also in the paper, amongst the 10 odd approved, there is no return rate, no risk assessment. We don't know whether the investment is worth it. You are advertising the government that investment can be risky. You know, you are telling the public to be careful when they make an investment. And then you say we should not look at return or risk. We should look at other spin-offs, you said. Say, Hong Kong businesses may have business, but ADB can tell people how much return has been gained and how many Hong Kong consultancies and professionals have got contracts for the 12 projects approved at AIIB. How much money has gone to professional firms in Hong Kong? There is not such a figure. And then you just bluff. You say, put money in it, there will be opportunities for Hong Kong. What about the 12 projects that have been approved? There is no information whatsoever, and you ask us to make a decision to say yes, put money in the bank. This kind of investment decision is done in vacuum, and you ask us to look at information furnished by another body. And you say, just trust us. You don't need further information. This is very strange indeed. We don't know the demand. You don't do demand assessment, no risk assessment. And you say there will be spin-offs in terms of social economic benefits. Again, we don't have data. It's a blank. It's a total blank. But I have got information. The rating is only BBB minus. It is totally removed from the market situation. The risk is much higher than the return there should be. So it's such a high risk. Why do you want to take it and yet the return rate is so low? Your time is up. Next, Ms. Claudia Mo, 3 minutes. You are asking the FC to approve $6 billion to join AIIB. The Hong Kong society has not digested that request. Many people don't even know what the AIIB is. Is the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, but what is it? People just don't know. But you want to rush through with it. You are asking us to vote on 37A motions. This is unfair to Hong Kong people because we are talking about the use of public money. Public money is taxpayers' money. I have read all the papers on AIIB. Frankly speaking, really, I am only half-hearted. On the one hand, you want diversification. You say Hong Kong is an international financial center. We should be diversified and we should help. Some persons in the financial sector told me not to be worried about the 4.8 billion out of the 6 billion because they are just callable shares. And it is not that definitely it has to be spent. Apart from the US and Japan, many other big countries have joined the bank. And for the bank to collapse, you say the opportunity is very rare. You call this the contingent liability because it would just be left there. But on the other hand, the atmosphere in Hong Kong now is such that you regard the FC as an ATM, that you can withdraw money as you like, and you want to rush things through, and you may think that we are too winded if we ask too many questions. My question now for you is that the AIIB doesn't do any risk assessment. You say it is still at an early stage. But what about credit rating agencies like Moody's and Standard & Poor's. You may say, well, this is still too early because it has not really got around to work. But do you have a timetable to ask these agencies to give you a rating? Well, but of course the officials will say, this is the business of the AIIB and we are just Hong Kong, so we can't answer on their behalf. So this is it. There are many major issues unresolved, and we have to pay 6 billion. And the 4.8 billion doesn't mean can rest with you. And yet, since we only have 0.7% shares, we have no say in the business of the bank. You say you want to be competitive. The ADB is also a good bank. Dr. Fernando Zhang. Chairman, I thank Mr. Michael Tin for speaking again because, Chairman, you didn't allow us to speak again. $6 billion. It may not be a big sum in terms of Hong Kong's budget, but to poor people from the point of view of disadvantaged groups, you can help them with dental, institutional services, rare disease treatment, cancer drugs. Those can save lives. But the 6 billion is just to buy membership of the AIIB, and our voting shares is only 0.7. So we are a very small part. China doesn't need to depend on our 0.7 shares to help it because it has 30% shares. Why still do we want to bootlick? You talk about economic benefits. Well, Mr. Christopher Zhang said there will be financing opportunities, etc. But you don't have to become a member to do that. We'll still have the business if we are capable. This is just like the World Bank or the IMF. They are steered by the US. They have a lot of money. They have excessive industrial capacity. So they wave to the weaker countries. If you don't have enough money, I lend you money. If you want infrastructure, I build bridges, airports for you. I lend you the money. I give you the technology. And I can then control you. This is the kind of strategy we have seen. Why do we want to get in this game of China's? $6 billion can better be spent on people's livelihood. Wouldn't that be much better? I hope the public will know that this game has been played at World Bank and IMF, and it is already backfiring.
世銀嘅 Chief Econ
The World Bank's chief economist, Joseph Stiglitz, he's also a Nobel laureate, and after getting the top job at World Bank, he realized that the whole game is meaningless, and it creates a poverty gap, and he realized it is wrong, and subsequently he was fired by the US, and he continued to promote his ideas in universities. I hope the government would read his theories about his theories, and Joseph Stiglitz already have deep regrets. Mr. Xu Ka-chun, 3 minutes. He's not here, so Mr. Ray Chan, 3 minutes. When we discuss whether or not Hong Kong should join the AIB and whether or not to grant the $6 billion, this is like a cult. You either believe it or not. Some people don't believe it, and others said we should believe it. After we join, there would be prosperity and money. So is $6 billion expensive or not? For the pro-establishment camp, of course, it's not expensive. Of the $6 billion, we really just have to pay $1.2 billion divided over 5 years. So you know, this This is an affordable party to throw, so to speak, according to this pro-establishment camp. So it's certainly worthwhile in their eyes, but you have to convince us. You failed to convince us. The undersecretaries just told us that we should just believe it. On the duration of the division bell, 5 minutes or 1 minute, this is about how fast we want to get this through. And the chairman is more and more stringent. Of course, he can manage meetings, and but all these must be done on an impartial and proportional basis. Next item, we are going to discuss the creation of a post at the Crime Prevention Bureau. You should not use your power to speed up the process, because at the end, it might even take longer. We don't have a lot of motions moved under Rule 37A. You failed to convince me to buy in your idea or proposal, and we should be given the original amount of time, and after that we will proceed to the vote. You said after paying $6 billion, all the problems would go away. So just go ahead, because no one will hold you accountable 10 or 20 years later, and it will be impossible to trace the actual revenue. Ms. Eddie Chu, 3 minutes. Thank you. On the discussions of AIB at this committee, I do acknowledge the difficulties faced by the pro-establishment camp, because this is about foreign affairs. We are trying to position this as a capital or financial project, but you will know very soon that this is not about money. You are endorsing Beijing politically. If we are to talk about AIB, if we don't talk about money for this type of international body, what are its objectives, and can it improve the lives of people in different countries? We need to identify the real issues in Asia. As I said, Asia faces deteriorating environments, widening poverty gaps, corruption with businesses and governments, and they are getting worse. But these have not been on the agenda of AIB. They only talk about creating wealth. If we don't overcome these problems, what would be the result of creating wealth? I think we know very well. The richest 1% of the population would have more than the remaining 99%. So Mr. Christopher Chung and Dr. Low Kwok said that infrastructure would benefit the people. Let's not be too blind. This is about whether there is democracy and whether governments hold themselves accountable to the people. how would the representatives of Hong Kong explain themselves to the Hong Kong people? Dr. Lau Siu Lai, 3 minutes. Thank you. I speak against shortening the division bell from 5 minutes to 1 because there is a lot we have to discuss, and I'm not happy why we only have 3 minutes from the start, and I couldn't attend the meeting last week because I was sick, and today I don't have the chance to ask questions. There are a lot of problems or questions with the AIB which must be clarified. I think the AIB is like a spell, and we are told that things would be fine after we join. Well, let's not just talk about the long-term interests of Hong Kong. They make it sound like the AIB is a charity project for other countries. I don't know whether this is a valid argument. I would like to know whether the recipient, the residents of recipient countries can decide what kind of road they want. So are they forced to carry out the infrastructure projects? If the answer is no, then that means the powerful countries are bullying the weak. Unless you can give us an answer, it's hard to support you. Why do we need to pass this kind of project in such an urgent manner without allowing for questions? You said you have a lot of items waiting, so time is very tight. For instance, the Kai Tak Sports Park. As you know, it's also highly contentious even among the pro-establishment camp. And no one knows how to build and operate this monster. And it needs thorough discussion at the PWSC. There's no need to rush it through. You should think about how our money can be spent. If the money is spent back in our community, it will create a lot of benefits. If the money is for other countries, then we should first discuss whether they are truly beneficial. You cannot use this as an excuse every time. When can we end these arguments? I do not understand why you were so anxious right at the beginning. The Kai Tak Sports Park has no urgency at all, so you shouldn't use this as an excuse to stop the filibuster. Mr. Nathan Law, I speak against the shortening of the division bell because we are yet to hit the crux of the debate. I agree with Mr. Eddie Chu that this is not about money at all. I feel anxious for Dr. Edward Yiu because what the government officials said have not sounded honest or relevant. According to the paper, the actual returns based on different factors and they cannot be quantified. And now the government always talks about making money, and they are telling Hong Kong people that by joining the ship you can make money, and there are no returns estimates according to the government. From day one, the AIB is a political project. It doesn't serve to create business. And it aims to maximize influence and use infrastructure projects to manipulate. Well, the idea is to exploit its advantages. If we criticize them for not making profit, I think we have missed the point. This is it's about whether we support this kind of foreign policy by powerful nations. There is collusion between different players in order to expand their sphere of influence. And according to Dr. Fernand Cheng, IMF adopted similar models, so we can learn from them. The government told us that they can make money, and then I should save up. So that should be the right angle, or else we would be missing the point. We cannot see why Hong Kong should enter or join the IMF, and what the nature of or role of China is. So by shortening the quorum bell from division bell from 5 minutes to 1, while the government paper is fundamentally wrong, leading us in a wrong direction. So this is not something we expect in a healthy legislative council. The government should not dive from the most important issues. Does any other member wish to speak? If so, please press the button. If not, I will put the item to the vote. According to Rules 47, the division bell will be shortened from 5 minutes to 1. The bell will be rung for 1 minute.
我提一提大家呢，我現在即
I'd like to remind members that we will proceed to the vote on shortening the division bell from 5 minutes to 1 minute.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins.
現在停止表決，顯示
Voting is closed. The results are shown. 35 for, 12 against, 0 abstention. The motion is carried. We have 11 motions moved under Rule 37A. Mr. Nathan Law, please.
請你讀出嚟啦，大家未必睇到，請你讀出嚟啊！
主席，我都係用個
Chairman, you can refer. I need to refer to the display. According to Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I move that since a lot of investing countries of the AIB are politically unstable and suffer from serious corruption, for example, Bangladesh, Pakistan, with dubious return. Therefore, we request the government to first assess the risks and returns of the 12 projects before deciding on the funding application. I have already given a lot of time. I will stop receiving motions under Rule 37A after we will proceed to the vote after dealing with the 13 motions.
現在開始。
The voting begins. Okay, please show the voting results. 13 in favor, 31 objections, 0 abstentions. So I declare that the committee has negatived the motion. Please read out the next one. Please ring the bell for 1 minute. Well, based on Rule 37A, I move that the committee have to ask the government to return mechanism for the 4.8 million callable shares before applying to the FC for funding.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Okay, please show the voting results. 13 in favor, 30 objections, 0 abstention. Declare that the committee has rejected the motion. Next item, please. Based on Rule 37A, I move that the committee should urge the government to compare the $6 billion, the differences in injecting the money into monetary authority, future funds, and also AIB, and to decide on the opportunity cost before deciding whether the committee should approve this funding request.
現在開始。
Voting begins.
現在停止。
Okay, voting ends. Please show the results. 13 in favor, 30 objection, and 0 exemption. I declare the committee rejected the motion. Next one, please.
財務委員會會議程序
Based on Rule 37A of FC, I move that since the government says that we need to issue set up an office in Hong Kong and issue bonds to take part in AIB. I urge the committee to regularly report to the panel on financial affairs to make sure that we have adequate returns.
Voting 現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Voting ends. Please show the results. 14 in favor, 30 opposed, and 0 extension. Declare that the committee has rejected the motion. Chu Hai-tik. 1 minute. Please ring the bell for 1 minute.
按財務委員
Based on Rule 37A of FC, I urge that the Hong Kong government, in appointing the governor and vice governor of the AIB, please inform electrical of the candidates' names and reasons for appointing them.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins.
現在停止表決。
Voting ends. Please show the results. 14 in favor, 30 opposed, 1 abstention. So I announce that the committee has rejected the motion. Next one, 1 minute. Based on Rule 37A, I move that the committee urge that the Hong Kong representative in the AIB's committee consult electrical first before it vote on any matters put before AIB.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Please show the results. 14 in favor, 30 against, 1 abstention. I declare that the committee has voted against dealing with this motion. Next one, please. Based on Rule 37A of the committee, I move that this committee should urge the Hong Kong government to lay down ASAP the principles, operating criteria, and standards for participating in AIB.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins.
現在停止表。
Voting ends. Please show the results. 15 in favor, 29 against, and 0 abstention. I declare that the committee has rejected this motion. Last four are moved by Vanilla Jerome. Please ring for 1 minute.
根據財
Based on Rule 37A, I move that on the since that the share capitals and the injection of capital into AIB amounts to $6 billion, the share or the returns, capital returns from the shares only results in 0.7% of the voting right, and it cannot bring concrete benefits to Hong Kong. It's a waste of public money. Therefore, we urge the Hong Kong government to withdraw the idea.
Hiện在開始表決。
Voting begins. Voting ends. Please show the results. 15 in favor, 30 opposed, and 0 abstention. I declare that the committee has rejected this motion. 1 minute, please. Based on Rule 37A of the committee, I move that since the AIB mainly targets at lending to developing countries in Asia and also to export surplus productions from Hong Kong, from China into them. But because of the wealth gap in China and Hong Kong, wealth gap is most serious in the developed areas. Therefore, we should not waste our public resources in paying for membership in AIB. Therefore, I urge the committee to withdraw the proposal.
Voting
begins. Voting ends. Please show the results. 15 in favor, 31 against, 0 abstention. I declare that the committee has rejected the motion. Next one, please. 1 minute. Based on Rule 37A of the committee on the capital subscription in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank proposal, since Article 58, those who are the countries becoming members of AIB, there are countries that subscribe 72 shares at a cost of $7.2 million US. I urge the government to recalculate the proportion of subscribed capital to reduce the burden of share and the capital involved.
你支持嘅。現在開始表。
Voting begins. Voting ends. Please show the results. 15 in favor, 30 against, 0 abstention. I declare the committee has rejected the motion. Last one. 1 minute, please.
根據財委會
Based on Rule 37A, on the capital subscription in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, I move that since AIB is involved in high-risk infrastructure projects, the committee urges the Hong Kong administration to do a risk analysis on Hong Kong's participation in AIB. Voting begins. Voting ends. Please show the results. 14 in favor, 30 against, 0 abstention. Declared that the committee has rejected the motion. So if there are no other questions, I'll put the paper to a vote. Those in favor of this item. Okay, you want to claim a division, please ring the bell for 1 minute.
我提一提大家，而家呢個呢就
Please be reminded that now we are going to vote on whether we should have the capital subscription in AIB. So it's now time to vote. Voting ends. Please show the results. Those in favor, 36. Objection, 10. 0 abstentions. I declare that this item is passed. So now let's move on to the next item, agenda item number 2. It seeks approval of the recommendation of the Establishment Subcommittee made at its meeting held on February 21st, 2017. That is paper FCR 2017-18-23. The creation of actually a Chief Superintendent of Police post, permanent post, to lead the Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Bureau. And the Establishment Subcommittee discussed this proposal on several meetings, and the administration also provided us with 3 papers. With us today to answer members' questions are Mr. John Lee, Undersecretary for Security, and his team. So members, if you have questions, please press the button. The first one is Alvin Young. You have 5 minutes. Chairman, should he take us through the paper first? Alvin Young, 3 minutes. 5 minutes. You can speak. I just want to know whether the police or the bureau does it have to take us through the paper. We don't have this practice because it's said it many times. You are supposed to read through the paper yourself. You have the responsibility to read through the paper yourself. But the bureau may be obliged to take us through it, but we don't have such practice. Okay, anyway. Okay, I'll go straight into asking questions. Chairman, I'd like to ask the bureau. Often, our frontline staff or members are faced with this issue of, members of the public telling us about online scams. When they take the case or make a report at the police station, after they've told the police the situation they encountered, often the frontline police officers will tell them that, there's no way they can sort out the case for them or make any arrests for them. I believe that our members often receive similar complaints. So I'd like to ask the bureau not to mention this creation of the Chief Superintendent post. Well, we know that there are a lot of online crimes. I understand what the Undersecretary would say in response to the people who got no help from police after making a complaint on online crimes. What can the police do about that? Undersecretary? For anyone who makes a report about scam or fraud and whether they can recover their money, it's not directly related to whether the police accepts the report, because anyone who makes a report, as long as it's about something illegal, then the police is obliged to look into the case. As for the result, what happens, it all depends on the investigation and whether after police have collected evidence, what can be done. whether a report from a member of the public is accepted and whether the money concerned can be recovered. That's not a reason for not accepting the complaint. Chairman, in response to what the Undersecretary said, I know that he just want to sound official, but we have seen complaints from members of the public who came to us before because they faced discouragement at the police station, and the policemen would not encourage them to continue filing reports, and therefore these people came to us with their complaints. I don't know whether the establishment camp had similar complaints, but we did. Therefore, I want to tell the Undersecretary that now you're going to create this permanent post. The paper mentions big missions to be achieved, but if police officers in the front line cannot tackle a small complaint from the public, then all these missions mentioned in the paper may not be achievable. It's meaningless to have all these missions on paper. So the Undersecretary, can you make any undertaking or promise to improve so that when members of the public face issues, particularly when it comes to online scams, can you make it possible for them to maybe make a report online? What would you say, Mr. Lee? Yeah, I made it clear just then. Anyone who makes a report, as long as the case is criminal in nature, then it will be accepted by the police. The victim, the communication between the victim and the police officer, it really varies, and I don't know. We will know what happens, but our order is very clear, or instruction is very clear. But as Mr. Young just mentioned, I hope that the police can supplement. Mr. Chung.
Assistant Commissioner. Thank you, Chair. As the Undersecretary said, a person who reports a case to a police station will be received, and we have the responsibility to try to understand the details of the case. And you asked whether people can report crimes online. Well, there is this mechanism now. And from time to time, we do receive technology crime reports online. If Mr. Young, you have particular cases in mind, please let us know after the meeting. But, Chairman, is that an undertaking? That is, when you receive reports in the future on cyber crimes, please direct frontline police officers not to discourage citizens right away. Undersec. Chairman, I think my answer is already very clear. We should not resort to any means to refuse to accept reports from the public as long as the report involves a criminal case. But communication-wise, how communication can be done in a clear manner, well, we have heard you, Mr. Young, and we will reflect your view to the police. The police have heard you, and they know your view very clearly. Thank you. Okay, that's it for this session. Please come back at 5:10.